Today's lesson is how to dilate a shape within the coordinate plane. We're going to do 3 different types of problems following the order we did them in notes. We're going to first dilate about the origin, about a point, and then developing a rule. So a dilation is just kind of when the shape gets larger or smaller. We're going to do a dilation of 2.5. This 2.5 is referred to as a scale factor. It's how much the shape is enlarging or reducing. If your scale factor is greater than 1, it's an enlargement, meaning the shape is getting bigger. If your scale factor is greater than 0, but smaller than 1, it's a reduction. What that means is the shape is getting smaller. You will never have a scale factor that is negative, ever. So it's always going to be less than 1 but bigger than 0. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is make a t-chart where we have x, comma, y. So D is located at -1, -1. S is located at 1, -1, and T is 1, 1. Now, my scale factor is 2.5. All I do for scale factor is I multiply. So I'm going to do 2.5 times x and 2.5 times y. All we're doing is we are taking the scale factor and multiplying it to x and to y. And in this kind of problem, I am dilating about the center, about the origin. So that means my shape is going to get bigger or smaller about this point. All I'm going to do is multiply all of my values, every single number, by the scale factor. So -1 times 2.5 is -2.5. -1 times 2.5, -2.5. I'm just multiplying. For s prime, I should get 2.5, comma, -2.5. And for t prime, it should be 2.5, comma, 2.5. This, we should know, is an enlargement because our scale factor is bigger than 1. Once you plot, or once you get your coordinate, now you're going to graph your shape. And I'm going to do this the best I can. It is kind of tricky when it's a decimal, but I'm just going to be as careful as I can. Then 2.5, 2.5, 1, 2.5, and then 2.5. Now in this case, the shape does overlap. That's not a big deal. And what's important to know is that the shape is larger than the original, so it's an enlargement. And something really interesting about dilations is that they always occur in lines, which means S prime, S, and the origin should all be able to be plotted on the same line. So this is kind of a way to just help you know if you're doing it right. If these are not lining up on the same line, it's wrong. T prime, and the origin, we know they do continue on, and so about D prime as well. So notice how they're all in the same, their own little path. If S prime was up here, I can't draw a straight line through those 3 points. So it lets you know kind of you're doing it right just by drawing this. All right, let's go ahead and try our next one. Now this next one is about a certain point. So we want to dilate this shape with a scale factor of 3 and a center at 0, 3. So the first thing you want to do is plot the center point. 0, 3. 1, 2, 3. Plot your point and then create a new XY off of that point. Basically, you're making a new origin. Now, I'm going to pretend like my old XY doesn't exist. And I'm going to go ahead and list my XY locations. So I've got A. A is now 0, -2. B is now -2, 0. And C is -2, -1. Notice how I'm getting those points off of my new origin. I don't care about what it was before. I'm using my new center. Now comes the part where I am dilating my shape. So I'm going to multiply x and y by the scale factor of 3. So this becomes 3x, 3y. So A prime 0 times 3 is 0. Negative 2 times 3, negative 6. B prime, negative 6, comma 0. And C prime, negative 6, comma negative 3. Now I'm going to plot. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that when I'm graphing this, I'm graphing it from my new center. So A prime is 0, negative 6, so I'm just going to count down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A prime. Negative 6, 0 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm not going to move off that, so that's B prime. And then C prime, again, negative 3, negative 6, negative 3. So 1, 2, 3, down to negative 6, and down 3. And now I'm just going to connect it. Again, your shape should be the same shape. The size should just be different. And again, your trick will still work. If I go from the center, A and A prime are on that line. C and C prime correspond to the origin. And B prime line up. So they're all kind of on their same line. That lets you know that you're doing it correctly. The final problem is you developing the rule. So given this, you're supposed to find out what the scale factor is. Scale factor equals what? We don't know. Remember, you're always going to go from prime, or no primes to prime. So image to pre-image, or pre-image to image. I'm sorry, I totally messed that up. Let me start over. So what you want to do, make sure you're finding the pre-image first and comparing it to the image. What I would recommend is finding points that are exactly on solid points, and it looks like in this example, they're all kind of on half pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and focus on U and U prime. Okay? So what you're going to do here is your goal is to find what the scale factor is. We start out with x, y, and we multiply x and y by some number. And we usually use the letter n to represent scale factor. We're basically trying to figure out what number do I multiply by. So going back to a previous example, notice we used a scale factor of 3. We multiplied by 3. In this case, we're just trying to find out what that number is. So the first thing you're going to do is pick your points, U and U prime. So U is listed at 1, 2. U prime is listed at about 1.5, comma, up 1, 2, 3. Okay? What you're trying to do is figure out what you multiplied by. So make sure you're not using zeros. That's kind of why I didn't pick these points. We don't want to work with 0 because anything times 0 is 0. So what you're going to do is create an equation. Your input of the equation was 1. 1 times the scale factor, 1 times your scale factor has to give you an answer of 1.5. To find that out, I'm going to divide by 1, so my scale factor is just 1.5. I can do the same thing with the other letter. I could also go, okay, I start with 2. 2 times what gives me an answer of 3? Well, when I divide by 2, I still get 1.5. So this should work with any point. So this lets you know your scale factor rule is 1.5.